interest in tendon pain, and I didn't realize this, but evidently I missed the deadline for by an hour or so to get my handouts and the I'll leave my cards up here. If you want to take a picture of it on your phone, or you want to take a card, that's fine. And then I'll either ask Bob to send it out, or I'll just, as emails come in, I'll send it out, or PDF, or Google Drive it, or whatever. Any questions? I guess I figure we should tailor this to what you want to know. If there's anything in particular you want to know or discuss. Yeah. Yeah. So I think the idea is like how do we, in a stepwise manner, little by little, do addition and subtraction before we do multiplication and division, kind of thing. And what does that look like? Because unfortunately it becomes unique for each athlete. And so the big place to start, just pretty much on any tendinopathy, if it's reactive or if it's tendinopathic, like if they've had it for a long time or if it just started, is with isometrics. And so if we use the patella tendon for our analogy today, is basically a straight leg raise, right? That is a simple isometric, right? And generally that one's going to be pain-free. So how do y'all do if you have somebody do straight leg raises? How do you have them do it? Like they lay down, or they sit up? What do they do? They lay down, right? Okay, which is fine, and it's a great place to start. And then how do you make it harder? Add weight. Okay, so a cool thing to maybe consider, I'm going to end up off camera for this, but is if we turn these sideways, why don't we do some demos? So I need 4 volunteers to come over here, and I want you to lay down and do a straight leg raise. And then you're going to tell me how hard it is from 0 to 10. And make sure you keep your knee locked out. So we see a bunch of straight leg raises in the PT clinic that look like this, right? And they're all bent, and that's just kind of a waste of time, right? So from 0 to 10, how hard is it? Yeah, like almost not worth the effort, right? Okay, now will you everybody sit up, okay, and lean, and you can put one leg down, and then I want you to hyperextend your knee, so get your heel to kind of clear. And then I want you to try and lift up. And so how hard is that? Right, so it's probably a 3 to a 5, right? Okay, so now here's the challenge. I'm going to start a 20-second timer, okay? So I've got something on my phone called a Tabata Timer. So it's T-A-B-A-T-A, and I can't tell you how helpful it is to have a timer, and your kids are going to bring a phone in probably to your training room. And so we're going to start it. So when it turns red, you'll go. All right, so try and hold it up. So we're taking a light load, and we're doing an isometric contraction. So we're loading the tendon, but we're loading it in a way that the tendon can handle it. So the tendon may have 1 out of 10, 2 out of 10, 3 out of 10 pain. But how hard is that now? Right, yeah, so now you're on the struggle bus, and then we're giving you a 10-second rest, and now we're going to try it again. And so this timer lasts for 4 minutes. So they do 20 seconds on, 10 seconds off, 20 seconds on, 10 seconds off. Yeah, depending on where your athlete is, and right, and so it's about to finish, but you can make their quads sore. Okay, so all right. So that was kind of the point there, right? Like you can get cramp, you can literally cause somebody to cramp, but the isometric is easy on their tendon, right? You're getting load, but you're not amplifying their pain response, and you're starting to get their muscle to turn on. Because a lot of people who have tendon pain will tell you they work hard or attempt to work hard and they don't feel it in their muscle at all. They're not sore when they leave. The only thing that hurts is their tendon because, like I said, the nervous system goes to the spinal cord and the brain and says, I don't like this, and I'm gonna inhibit that muscle so that I can avoid that tendon to hurt. So you have to be creative in ways to figure out how do I work the muscle and load the tendon without making it hurt, right? So you can do this, and you can use this if you happen to have a leg extension machine in your weight room or an old school table and ankle weights. This can become the same thing. You're sitting on a table, put a 5-pound ankle weight on them, have them hold it. They'll probably tell you it only hurts when they lift the weight, but the holding of the position doesn't hurt, okay? So then you give them a timer and say, all right, we're going to do 4 minutes of this, we're going to do 4 minutes of that, and then you can start to build their overall load. And what do they do in class, right? So tendons do best either in the first phase with the degenerative tendinopathy or when they're irritated with loads probably at least 3 to 5 times a day minimum. And we're not talking like an hour session. We're just talking a few minutes of load, but 3 to 5 times a day. So how do we get it in school, right? And so what I'll tell kids is if you're sitting at a desk, if you'll put your foot up against the desk in front of you, right? And so they're just literally going to kick that desk, hopefully not hard enough to move it or bother the person in front of them, but right? And they're trying to make their tendon hurt at about a 2 or 3 out of 10. And their job is to hold it, right? And so they're going to hold it for 20 seconds, 30 seconds, build up to 45 seconds or a minute. So you're getting a low level of pain that when they're done, they can kick their leg out. They're not going to have residual pain. And there's pretty good evidence that if you'll do that 3 to 5 times, you can significantly calm down pain. And once you calm down that pain, their ability to explode, run, jump is better. So we'll even do that after ACL reconstruction when they're 12 weeks out or more and they're really getting moving and lifting and things like that. We'll have them come in. They may ride the bike or elliptical for a few minutes and they go straight to isometrics. They'll do about 5 minutes of isometrics at different angles, and then we'll get them up and they'll do things like squatting, lunging, jumping, those kind of things. That kind of makes sense. So isometrics, proven to relieve pain, better than NSAIDs. Yeah, and so then we get to phase 2, right? So phase 1 is isometrics, you calm down the tendon. Phase 2 is isotonic. So a lot of kids that don't have a spike in load that helps cause their tendinopathy get their tendinopathy from they're not probably in the shape they need to be in to perform the activity, right? So maybe their leg strength isn't where you want it to be. And so in a lot of these, and I've made a handout that if y'all want to take a picture of on your phone, on these progressions, and it's based on literature, but you basically want to be able to leg press more than your body weight, right? And so a lot of kids have trouble with squatting because there's a lot of form issues that make squatting difficult. But you'd really like a kid to be able to single leg press their body weight. Okay. So that way, most of our sports are one-legged sports, like you're cutting and jumping and moving. And so how do we build to that? Because a lot of times if you put that kind of load on them right out of the gate, their tendon's going to hurt again. And so what you use is a metronome. And so I've got a metronome app on my phone, and this might drive you nuts in the clinic, but you turn it on like 60 hertz or 1 beat a second. And their job would be on that leg press or leg extension or doing a body weight squat. They're going to, and then they pause at the bottom, 2, 3, and then right? And so what happens if I take somebody and make them do a 3-second eccentric and a 3-second pause at the bottom? Even if it's a leg press, I say just don't let the plates touch, but get them as close as you can. How much load do you need to cause fatigue? Not much, right? So again, we can reduce the load so that the tendon is getting loaded but not getting pissed off, and then we can start to fatigue the muscle. And that's what we want the body and the nervous system to start to realize is, I've got no pain and my muscle's getting sore. This is the way exercise was meant to feel. This is the way sports are meant to feel. And you start to groove a motor pattern. And then all you do is you start increasing that load as they can tolerate it, and you use your 2 to 3 out of 10 model. If it's not hurting more than a 2 or 3 out of 10, we can push into it. And if we're done with the exercise, the tendon calms down within 24 hours so that we can train again. Okay? Does that make sense? So for a lot of people, and I use this actually with rehab, with following ACL reconstruction and that sort of thing, is I'll put the metronome on or tell them to put it on in their earbuds, and I'll watch them, and they'll go 3 seconds down, single leg, pause at the bottom, and then a lot of times for the concentric on the way up, I'll tell them they can explode or push as hard as they want. And they don't usually have much oomph after pausing at the bottom, because instead of the tendon truly storing the energy and elastically giving it back, when you pause at the bottom for a while, it essentially starts to dissipate. Some of that is dissipation through heat. So you go isometric, and then phase 2 is isotonics, use a metronome, and then gradually increase their loads. And your goal would be 1 to 1.5 times their body weight on a single leg press. And then you get into hopping, jumping, jump rope is a great place to start. Anybody have any of the athletes jump rope? It's got its own metronome in it, right? So a lot of times this is what we should look like when we jump rope. And a lot of times you hand a kid a jump rope and they haven't done it since jump rope for heart, right? And they end up like, right? And so it becomes a great cardio thing, but it also lets you know, man, this kid, their movement proficiency isn't very good, and we probably need to work on a little bit of that, right? And so it should just come from here. And if they can't do that, then a lot of the box jumps and things, they're probably not ready for from a motoric kind of perspective. But once you start doing energy storage and loading kind of things with like jumping rope or box jumps and stuff, then you're probably going to need to follow that up with a day of isometrics. So they energy store, it may irritate their tendon. The next day you come in and you're just back to isometrics. And the next day you might go back to your lifting and loading and strengthening. And then you go to energy storage, and then you come right back around to isometrics. So while you're digging out of this hole, isometrics is either going to be a daily thing before you do strength training or before you do your tendon loading, or it's going to be a real emphasis on your rest days. So you're going to do energy storage, you'll do strength, and then you'll do an isometric, just full isometric day where you're not overloading the muscles, but you're providing a stimulus and pain relief for the tendon. Does that make sense? And then phase 4 would be return to sport. Is how do they do during practice? And if you do, so I guess to put this in perspective, I had an elite level CrossFitter who made it to the CrossFit Games, I guess 3 or 4 years in a row now. But the day I met her, she came walking in, knees bent like this, had PRP injections on both patellar tendons, was told to rest, and we know what rest does to your tendon. And so she couldn't do a straight leg raise, but she had these just jacked quads, no body fat, could deadlift, I don't know, she probably deadlifts close to 400 pounds right now, could squat a house, but couldn't do a straight leg raise. And she basically trained so hard that her body just couldn't handle the load. And we'd slap, we have these biofeedback units, and normally somebody of her fitness level would be at 200 to 300, what is it, volts, right? Microvolts. And she was at 10. Like, it was like she was post-operative ACL reconstruction. And so, but literally within 2 weeks with isometrics, she could do a full one-legged squat, her butt to her heel and back out. Now, she wasn't ready to start training again, but isometrics can really do a number on things. And so when we get to return to sport, she still does those isometrics, you know, at least a few times a week. And she slowly basically re-entered her full volume of training. And she's willing more to rest now because her genetics can only take so much training, and all of ours would reach some breaking point if we tried to train like her. Yeah. So that's a really good point. So a provocative test. So tendinopathy is best judged by just a physical performance test that they can do that basically they'll help you find it. They'll say, like for her, she'd say, it hurts when I do this. And she wanted to be able to get way down here and come back out. So each day, that's what we would do. Like she came in, before she warmed up, we would check. And so, and then within 24 hours, we'd check again. Is that the same, better, or worse? If it's worse, I'm at an isometric day. If we're the same, that's fine. That's probably about the dose she needed. If she's better, then I'm going to increase her load. Okay? Yeah. Okay. So that's a great point. And so it should be a physical sign or a salient sign that you check and recheck with tendinopathy. It could be a single leg heel raise. It could be a single leg hop for distance. It could be a basketball kid trying to dunk off his left foot or his right foot, and he tells you just can't explode. Right.
Whether it's reactive or the chronic tendon, that the whole build not more likely.
For the most part, no. I mean, if outside of they're not a steroid user, right, and they're not not on those antibiotics, things typically don't. They usually don't traumatically tear. So rotator cuff is a little different. Somebody might fall or have some kind of weird work injury, but in kids, even the rotator cuff, I mean, rarely tears with an injury, whether it's a dislocation or kind of otherwise. Yeah, I mean, they're okay. There is some evidence emerging that some injections can be good, but how you do it is kind of imperative. And it's kind of like PRP. There may be some usefulness to it, but the studies don't show it because they spin down the blood in different ways and they inject it different ways, and then the rehab afterwards is varied, and so it makes the research kind of a muddled mess. We do know for sure, like in tennis elbow in adults, and there's a few other things. I think rotator cuff, they're even looking at not doing rotator cuff repairs within 6 months of a steroid injection. There's some debate about, like, should we not try and sew back that tissue within 6 months of having an injection? But for sure, tennis elbow is one of the #1 things that you'll love the doctor for the first week or two after they inject you, and at 6 or 9 months later, generally you're worse if you're left alone and don't do some kind of tendon loading program. The long-term outcomes are worse, and the short-term outcomes are better with an injection. So if long-term is your big vision, then, but if you've got to play on Friday night and it's the last playoff game or a playoff game, it's fine. You got off season to recover, and you're probably going to be fine. All right. Well, let me know. Like I said, my cards are here. This is a tendon handout that's meant for the patella tendinopathy. If you want to take a picture of it for use, or I can send you a PDF if you want to send me an email. I'm happy to share it. So.